Well, that was epic. Hello, and welcome to the Review of Champions. It's time to talk about The Rings of Power, Episode 6, Udun. With me is Murph.
How you
It's the
doing?
two of us again, man.
Yep.
Yeah. Before we start, I would like to ask you all to hit the like and subscribe button and maybe join our forum on Sakar. Sakar.freeforums.net. It's a nice community, nice fans. We would love it if you sign up and join our conversation. And if you want, you can be on the show as well. Again, we are looking for people who are into Tolkien, DC, Marvel, Star Wars, Star Trek, whatever. Join us. We're going to talk spoilers, so if you haven't seen the episode, go check it out first and then come back to the video. Murph, this week, no Harfoots, no Elrond and Durin, nothing of that. But they did bring two storylines together for the first time in the show. And man, it was rewarding. Don't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you know, part of you misses the Harfoots and stuff, but what we got was so great that it's fine. You know what I mean? Um, I love that they merged two of the storylines. It just gives you less to try to keep track of. A couple of things being in the same spot is just helpful. Less clutter in the
Mhm.
room. Um, and it was just great. I mean, there was you know several action sequences. There was a lot of excitement. There was some emotional scenes, some good dialogue between some characters, some nice moments there. Um, Really, you know, peeling the layers back on characters like Adar and even Galadriel. Getting a lot more with Elendil and Isildur in this episode. Like there was just so much to take away from it, despite it only being these two storylines and no Durin, no Elrond, no Harfoots, none of that stuff. There was still so much that happened here, and obviously that final sequence with the creation or whatever of Mount Doom was just I nearly jumped out of my seat when I realized what was happening, like when all the plan came together. It was just such satisfying television for me.
Yeah. The moment but it also had a great payoff for all those episodes where some people, I should say, were complaining it's a slow moving show and there's not much going on and nothing happens. Well, when you see those tunnels and the reason why they were built and what actually happened at that moment, uh, am I overreacting when I say I think this was the single greatest scene in television ever? The creation of Mount Doom. I mean, it was so epic. It's still glued on my eyeballs, basically.
Yeah. It's hard to say. I can't say for certainty whether it was the greatest thing ever, but it's the best thing in this show so far, and the best thing I've seen on TV in a while. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, yeah, um, yeah. The moment actually they showed the mountain for the first time, and that the water was running towards it, that was quite obvious how they cut the edit the episode. I was like, wait a minute, is that Mountain? Is that gonna be Mountain?
Yeah.
And then yeah, you see the water go down, and that created a chain reaction in the fires of hell, as you can say. Uh, that was amazing. And what I loved was that Galadriel, I should say, stood there still, realizing she failed
Hmm.
to see, and that she actually was right all along. That the evil was back, is back, and yeah, that, it took my breath away. It was like you said, I also jumped out of my seat. I watched the show with my wife. She is a binger, but I convinced her to watch the show with me on a week to week basis. And today she said, actually, I want to see this episode again. Well,
Mhm.
she hardly ever wants to see something for a second time. Well, that shows how great this episode was. And if you say that the CGI is bad, what I read sometimes online, which I think is absolutely not the case for the show in any way, but if you have seen this scene, you cannot get away with it.
Yeah, I haven't. I mean, I haven't heard. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I've heard some criticisms of like the wolves and wargs or things like that, but I mean, they're supposed to be kind of monstrous, and
Yeah.
it's not supposed to look like a real wolf. You know what I mean? It doesn't look like a real wolf in the original Lord of the Rings either, or the Peter Jackson films. But yeah, I mean, the sequence at the end is especially when Arondir and Theo are having that conversation, and he hands him the package, or it's the sword hilt wrapped in cloth. The second he handed him that and said like it's up to you to bury it or whatever to get over the, I guess he has some kind of a link to it now, like an
Hmm.
emotional link or a spiritual link. Whenever he handed him that, I was like, "Ooh, it's not going to be in there." And I'm like, "Wait a minute!" And he mentions Waldrig. Ador mentioned Waldrig like very briefly, and then like everything started happening quickly. So I forgot about it. I forgot that he was like, Waldrig, I have something for you. Because then that second, like the Numenorians ride in, and all hell breaks loose. But whenever he handed him that, I was like, "Ooh, he doesn't have the thing." And then they cut to Waldrig with the hilt at the thing, and I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be crazy. Like, I didn't know what the plan was. And then once it's essentially like tearing the dam down and causing the water, I'm like, okay, well that's going to maybe flood the valley. And then when they showed the tunnel, because it confused me at first whenever the water's like shooting up out of the ground. I didn't put two and two together until they showed me the tunnels filling with water and rushing towards, and I'm like, oh, they could dug a tunnel to Mount Doom, like, or the mountain over there. They're going to cause the volcano to erupt. That's how they're going to block out the sun. Like it all clicked at the same time, and it was just like I said, one of the most satisfying like TV moments to, because it was built up. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
this would have happened in episode 2, it wouldn't have been nearly as satisfying as now, because you got to see a lot of things, you got to understand a little more Adar's character and what his goals are. I mean, I have no problem with the pacing. I know that's been like an issue that a lot of people have had, like, oh, nothing's happening. But like, obviously for us, we haven't been bothered by it at all.
Hmm.
But like, without that, not slow crawl, but without that build up, this doesn't feel as impactful, for me. So I loved it. I thought it was great. It was just such a satisfying payoff to several things that we've been seeing and knew thought were important. Obviously there needs to be that payoff if you got a slow pace, and I feel like this episode was a big payoff. It could have been a series finale episode, honestly.
Yeah. But let's go back to the beginning of the episode. Basically, what you see is Adar giving an Aragorn-like speech to the orcs that they can gain their freedom, their country, or their realm, or whatever you want to call it, because they have a right to. Well, that's up for debate. Let's not get into that. And then they move on to the watchtower. And the build up so far seemed like we're going to get an epic battle with the watchtower. And we didn't get that at all. And that I was like, okay, they did a very smart thing with that watchtower. And I was like, okay. Actually, I was thinking before this episode, this watchtower may be the same tower that Frodo was captured when he was captured by the orcs. Of course, they in the course of the millennia they added stuff and turned it differently. But it looks a little bit like on the edge of a mountain ridge and looking down into a valley. Maybe it still will be the same spot, but you know what I mean. But then when they destroyed the tower, I was like, okay, and now what's happening? So then they move to the village where we get that awesome fight, basically, which actually is not going too well for the people in there. And I love that little twist where they actually fight their own kind and then they get destroyed by the orcs after that. Uh, I thought it was cleverly done. And then you get another twist, of course, with the Numenor riding in. That whole battle scene, I, I thought it was absolutely great and also very for TV. Again, this is TV. I thought it was an epic battle scene and very well executed, and you could understand what was going on all the time. Sometimes with the battle scenes, you get lost halfway through because you can't make heads or tails of it anymore because they just want to show cool stuff. But everything served a purpose in this whole story. I thought it was great. What do you think about this first part of this week's episode?
Yeah, the whenever they walked right into the watchtower uncontended, and then it, the Arendir, is that his name?
Yeah.
Whenever he like caused it to fall over, I was a little underwhelmed. I was like, I thought it was going to be kind of a ministerial, is that the right word? Situation where, or Helm's Deep was the one I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of like a castle defense. You know what I mean? Like they're going to be shooting arrows back and forth. Are they going to break through the gate or not? I thought it was going to be a lot like that. So whenever it kind of cut all that out and just made it a trap, I was a little underwhelmed. I was like, okay, that's smart, but like it's not that satisfying. You know what I mean? I wanted to see a big battle. And then we get to the village, which is a lot less, it felt a lot less strategic at the time, a lot less walls and things like that, even if there was strategy involved. But that's where you kind of see, like, there was a lot of false victories for the men here, like the humans, whatever you want to call. At first the tower falls, they're like, oh, nobody could have survived that, and then they get attacked in the village and they win that first little routing, and then they realize it's all the people who left them, and they're kind of disheartened by it, and then the arrows start coming in, and it's like the orcs outsmarted you here, or Adar outsmarted you, and he's playing chess and you're still playing checkers. He's outthinking you.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like you say, like it just kept swaying back and forth, like, oh, the orcs are winning, and then whenever everyone gets captured and he just is like, where is it? And they won't tell him where the sword hilt is, and they just start offing prisoners left and right. I'm like, oh crap, we're gonna lose a lot of people here. And I thought maybe Bronwyn was gonna be one of them. Like she seemed real close. And then the Numenoreans ride in heroically, and you're like, okay, now it's swaying back towards the side of good. And then, eventually it's like, oh, nope, back towards the side. It was just such a roller coaster. Like it kept swaying back and forth for me. I just love the whole sequence of events there. Just the way that it felt strategic, like it felt like, okay, well, you laid this trap. Well, now we sent in your old friends and you killed them unknowingly. And now we're shooting you with arrows, and now we've captured you. Oh, wait, there's cavalry coming in, but turns out that wasn't even important because the evil plan came to fruition in the end anyway.
No.
Yeah, it was very good.
Yeah, I agree. There was one scene that stood out to me, beside, of course, the creation of Mount Doom, which we already covered, and that was a scene which involved a father, son, and a horse, and I thought that scene was really touching, and for the first time, I really felt like they were father and son, if you know what I mean, instead of commander and soldier. And it reminded me a lot of the scenes of in the Lord of the Rings movies with Aragorn and Brago. I think they were more in the extended versions of the Lord of the Rings movies. I don't know if you've seen them. Probably yes. And I thought it was really great, that scene. There was a lesson there.
Yeah, I liked, just doubling down on it, scene between Isildur and Galadriel on the boat before they
Hmm.
even get to Middle Earth. And then there was right after that the scene between Galadriel and Elendil, Isildur's father, on the same boat. And I love Elendil's character. I think he is very much cut from the same cloth as Aragorn. He's easily likable and just commands a certain attention. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Um, and then obviously later on, you get Elendil and Isildur, connecting. I think it was after the battle, right? So they
Yeah.
were, emotions are always going to be high during battle and things like that. So it was probably a little bit of a come down from that. And I'm pretty sure they hugged and that sort of thing. It was touching. It was very touching, and I feel like you get a lot of Isildur's like heart in this episode. You feel a lot of, he's been shown as kind of spoiled a little bit and kind of bratty, for lack of a better word. And I feel like in this episode he came across as a much more likable character. You can
Hmm.
see that his heart's good. Whether or not it winds up getting corrupted or not.
Yeah, and maybe he's not the strongest person.
Right.
Um, there was one parallel. I wouldn't call it nice. What happened to his mother is exactly is what's going to happen to him um, eventually. And so, yeah, that made me kind of sad. That to know that he will also, well, technically he would get shot and then drown, but still, that made me a little bit sad.
Yeah.
So
A little bittersweet.
overall, yeah, there's not much to discuss basically about what's going to happen. I mean, we're now know, okay, Mount Doom is created. Probably Galadriel will get back to the uh, Gil-galad and say, "I told you so," and then they're gonna forge that alliance of man and elf eventually, and then of course there's gonna be some intrigue, and some of the intrigue will involve Halbrand. Uh, I thought he was reluctant, even after he decided to join this quest. Uh, Even when he was asked, "Are you the king that was promised to us?" He was reluctant to say yes. Um, Now, this is something I spotted online, and I don't know if you have read or seen it, but his arm armor looks a lot like the arm armor of the King of the Dead
Yeah.
in The Return of the King. So will he be the one that refuses to fight?
He could be. I saw that same image too. Like it's like the same type of links that is
Yeah.
on his armband or whatever. Um, you know, I have not fully committed to the theory that he's going to become one of the Nazgul, but I'm
Mhm.
like really close to that idea. But if he becomes, that character instead, eventually, obviously, um, that would also be fine. I find him an interesting character, regardless of what his eventual end game is going to be. I don't really, obviously we know who the line of Gondor's kings are going to be, whether he winds up being like an ancestor of Theoden or something along. I don't know. I feel like it's going to be a tragic end more than a optimistic one for him, just because like I get that vibe. But that might just be me talking myself into it also. So, you know,
Yeah, well, I'm in that same tunnel. I don't have the feeling that he's a really good guy.
yeah, and
I
yeah,
have the feeling he will jump ship at some point and he will betray the cause.
it very well could be what you say, that he is winds up stuck in a what are they stuck in a mountain like
Under the mountain, yeah.
yeah, they're like uh, and it makes sense because didn't the ghosts in that they made a promise to Isildur, right,
Yeah.
that they broke. So that would make sense if that wound up coming to fruition. But as of right now, it's just a little too early to lean full into it. But if it winds up being it, as long as it's done well, I'm fine with that.
Mhm. Okay. We got two more episodes this season. And usually a scene like they ended with, the creation of Mount Doom, would be an epic season finale, and then they say you wait for a year, and then you will see what's going on further. They're not doing that. They have 2 more episodes for us in store, so there must be something coming as more. Um, well, I don't like to do the speculation game, but I do want to know if you have any ideas what we're going to see in the next 2 episodes before the season ends.
So I did watch the preview for the next episode, so I kind of have some idea of at least what's going to be involved in it. Which is, I guess, Doran and the dwarves are maybe mining a little too far down, or them actually mining for the mithril actually causes problems for the mountain. Whether or not they're going to wind up unleashing a Balrog or something crazy like that, I don't know. I feel like that doesn't happen until way later, but who knows what the consequences of mining this thing that is making the mountain unstable will be, because they've been shown to have like a kinship with the mountain, being able to talk to it, so that could create all kinds of problems for them. Other than that, I mean, I don't really know. I feel like the hobbits may get to at least an area around Mordor. Maybe they were aiming for what used to be a nice countryside, but now it's going to be covered in volcanic ash. I feel like they're going to at least be involved with the mountain. Like, they're going to see the mountain from the distance erupting, and they're not going to have any food or anything, so they're going to have to look for maybe another place to make home for whatever their winter or whatever they want to call it.
I have a suggestion. The Shire.
yeah. But if they are like all the way east, that's a bit of a walk, And hopefully they have enough food to go back.
Nah, they wander around, so they're wandering folk.
I don't know what the plan is for the stranger for the next 2 episodes. I'm not really sure. I have no idea what their plan is there, other than.
Yeah, and also I don't know what those alien type things, those alien elves that landed on the planet, or are investigating at least whatever the space was that the stranger crawled out of. So yeah, we also have that going on.
I do have a feeling though, and I was thinking of this a few episodes ago, whenever Galadriel had to convince the Numenors to come over to Middle Earth. She still has to convince Gil-galad and the elves that anything is happening. And Mount Doom erupting could be a sign that they believe, or they could just I mean, it's a volcano erupting. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean evil, unless they see the army underneath of it. You know what I mean? But it could go a couple different ways, and I'm just wondering if, especially because he sent her away thinking that would end the bloodshed for the tree, the light of the tree that was diminishing. So when he sees her that she hasn't left, he may just blame her. Like, you were supposed to leave. Like, why didn't you leave? It's because of you that all this is happening. So I'm wondering if there's going to be a big conflict there that maybe not get into in the next 2 episodes, but maybe that's like a season 2 issue, like convincing the elves that there actually is a problem until they see it, until the orcs like raid one of the elves' villages, or they see an orc head on a pike or whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, something is up. That's clear, right? I mean,
it's clear in the Southlands, but I don't know how many elves are down there.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Let's just move on to rating this week's episode. I think we know where this is about to go. Murph.
Well, without the Harfoots, I mean, they were really the crux of the show, so it's going to be like a 5, and it's a 10. I mean, it was one of the best episodes of television I've watched in a long time. So it was exciting, and it was entertaining, and it was a payoff of several episodes leading up to it. So it was satisfying in so many different ways.
Yeah, if this was the first season finale, I would have been totally satisfied. So
right.
And I would say that the season ended on a high note. I will be very excited to watch season 2. Well, luckily for us, we still get 2 episodes.
Right.
I also rate this episode a 10 out of 10 again. But there's just no way for me around it. This show is absolutely great. So, yeah,
I'm having zero problems being
yeah.
entertained by the show.
Yeah, I'm actually every Friday when I get home and I've done all the things I need to do and I settle down on the couch. I'm really glad that I can watch this show. And it's not like it's 20-minute episodes, and that's also something I like. It's a good hour and it's rewarding.
Yeah, this episode, I think it was even over an hour. It was like an hour and 10 minutes or something like that. I mean, including credits or whatever, but it felt like it was a longer episode than the previous couple.
Yeah, absolutely. It was 1 hour and 10 minutes, including the credits. So, yeah. Well, that will conclude our review for episode 6, named Udun of the Rings of Power. Before we finish, I would like to invite you all again to hit that subscribe button and notification bell on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter, like our Facebook page, join the forum on Sakar. That way you will never miss us and we won't have to miss you. Bye.